Alright, hey again guys. So now that you have finished our mean absolute deviation, we are going to look at some dot plots. So we worked with dot plots a little bit whenever you guys ran your bases and we put them all into the plot to summarize our data. So we're going to dig a little deeper. So a dot plot is a visual display of data using a number line and dots to represent each data point. The data that repeats itself most often is your mode. In a dot plot, the mode is the tallest value. So your mode is super easy to spot in your dot plot. So down here, it says a survey in the 6th grade class asked students to record the number of devices they had in their home. And here is the information. This is called a frequency table. And so we're going to use this frequency table to make a dot plot. So we're going from 0 to 9, meaning there's 0 devices in their home. And then the most was 9. So I'm going to label the number line. Now, the number of devices 0, that 1 means there was actually one person who had no devices in their home. Number of devices 1 is 2. So that means there are 2 people who have only 1 device in their home. Number of devices at 2 is 4, so there are 4 people who have 2 devices. There are 5 people who have 3 devices. There were 7, so I did not leave enough room. Just gonna go up on here. 7 who have 4. There were 5 again who had 5. There were 4 who had 6, only 2 had 7, 2 had 8, and then only 1 person had 9. So that's your dot plot for this data. So where would you say most of your what do you notice about the shape of this data? So what I notice is that if you look here, it's pretty evenly balanced. There's a good curve here. That's not a curve. A good curve here of not that many. You reach your mode and then it kind of curves back on down. So it's pretty evenly distributed. So where would you say that most of the data lies? And what is the median? Well, most of the data is right here in the middle of our dot plot. And the median we can actually find, which you should know how to find the median. So we'll mark off our lowest, highest until we get to our center. And we can find our real median this way. Because you can even mark off the dots in order to find the median. And now if you look, I still have all of these left. But since they're all a 4, then that would mean that our median is 4 here. All right, so talking about the distribution of some data. So that means like how your data is distributed out. We got to talk about the spread, how our center acts, and then what are these shapes called? So these shapes of data of the dot plots do have names. So in the spread, the variability in the dot plot describes how far apart the data is from one another. This can also be represented by the range. And you know how to find the range. The median and the mean both represent the center of the data. When the data is skewed, meaning you don't have this pretty little spread that works nice and neat like this little heel, then the median is the best representation. When the data is symmetric, so I'm going to show you what all these things mean, then the mean is the best representation. So some really important words that I need you to learn here is skewed and symmetric, and make sure that you can understand what those mean. So down here, we're going to talk about what does that mean. Here are some data on they look like 3 different things. This first one is symmetric. This is symmetric data. You got the most here in the middle, and then it kind of just falls off in a curve. That is symmetric. This, do you see how most of the data is on one side, just like it is over here? That means these are both skewed. So the first one, the second one is skewed, and the third one is skewed. Now, this one here is going to be skewed right, because skewed means that the data isn't following a good pattern, and skewed right means I'm missing, it looks like I'm missing some data to the right, which means this one here is skewed to the left because you do not have a lot of data here on your left. So if you flip to the back, we're going to do this first problem together. The Ecology Society sampled the green iguana population and made note of the length of each iguana. The data is displayed. So here's our dot plot of how long the iguanas are. What is the mean, range, median, interquartile range, which for now I want you to skip because I'm going to teach you that later. So let's get to doing this. So I'm going to start with range. So 19 was the longest iguana. There's my dot. 11 is not on here. No iguanas were 11. The shortest one was 12. So for my range, I would do 19 minus 12. And so my range is 7. The median, we can just mark off our dots. So 12, 19, 13, 18, 14, 18, 14, 17, 14, 17, 15, 16, 15, 16. And so our median is right there at 16. For the mean, so my suggestion is you should list out your data. So I had one iguana 12 inches, one 13. I had 3 iguanas that were 14 inches. I had 2 that were 15. I had 3 that were 16. I had 2 that were 17, 2 that were 18, and only 1 iguana was 19 inches. So that is a total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So they measured 15 iguanas. So that means whatever the sum is, I know I got to divide by 15. So you're going to add up all the length of the iguanas. 12 plus 13 plus 14 plus 14 plus 14 plus 15 plus 15 plus 16 plus 16 plus 16 plus 17 plus 17 plus 18 plus 18 plus 19. So that was 234, the sum of their inches, divided by the 15 iguanas. And so their mean, or their average length, was 15.6 inches long. B says, based on the shape of the data, which measure of center would be best? So the data is symmetrical. It's not perfectly, but if you look, less data, more, and then less. So this is symmetrical, which means your mean would be the best. Okay, number 3, a local neighborhood is seeking to become certified in the energy efficiency. The efficiency scores of each home are displayed below. So the peak score, so the peak is going to be your mode. So this peak is 68. You can see the peak, that's the highest point. So the peak score is 68. The shape of this distribution, well, it looks like I need more data here, and I've got none over here. So it's definitely skewed. And since most of it is on this side, then it's going to be skewed left, because that means we're missing some data on the left. Now the range, the highest score was 72, the lowest score was 60. So that means my range would be 12. And then we're going to label each of the following as true or false. A total of 20 homes were rated. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That is false because they did 22 homes. Exactly half of the ratings were greater than 68. Well, 68 is here, and I can look at that and tell you that's false because That is less than half. The most common rating was 66. That is also false. The most common rating would have been 68. All right, and then lastly, Mr. Tip asked his students to sketch a dot plot that was symmetric. Which student is correct? Symmetric means we have the most in the middle, and then we go off on both sides. So it's going to be Sarah only. Or we can have the least, and do you see how that's also symmetric? Because they follow the same thing. So that actually means Sarah and Javon are both right, because this is symmetric, but in the reverse order. Okay, so now you guys are going to go, and you are going to do some dot plot practice on your own, and I will see you on Monday.